Good evening. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another exciting episode of the Jade Mechanic. It is a hot one here. First of all, shout out to all my friends in the great United States for Happy Independence Day. This is being recorded a couple days after, but it was just my Facebook members are showing me that 2 years ago I was flying home from Charlotte after visiting with my good brother Lucas Underwood, where we've been at the 4th of July celebration of his new shop, and I was nursing a moonshine hangover and a little bit of jet lag, so it was a good time. But back to the Canadian content that we're always trying to pump up more for people here. I'm sitting here with a new friend of mine, a fellow Canadian, fellow person from Ontario, which is a lot of us from Ontario. Mr. Frank Wiebe, who is from 3D Auto in Elmer, Ontario. Frank, how are you tonight?
I'm doing just fantastic, Jeff. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, it's hot, isn't it, man?
Oh, man, has it been hot and sweating just standing around doing nothing.
Yeah. So I got to know you kind of a little bit from TikTok, which is everybody rolls their eyes when we say TikTok. But I mean, you've been on there longer than I have. And yeah. And what
I didn't realize that.
What really kind of has taken off for you is the people that maybe do know or don't know. Ontario rolled out a new kind of safety program the way we do it now for cars. It's what, a year old, Frank?
It's about that, because it started, I think, in August of last year is when we actually went live with ours.
Mm-hmm. And so when he says go live, what it was, guys and gals, is now everything is done with a tablet. So essentially you're linked in via the internet right to what we call MTO in Ontario, Ministry of Transport of Ontario. And so we're documenting the condition of the car, identifying the car. You need a picture of the VIN number. You need a picture of the compliance label. You're supposed to have that anyway. Some cars don't have compliance labels. And then everything is, so they're, Frank, are they live, do you think, when we're doing this?
In a sense, they are live. I think there's certain triggers that somebody's sitting there watching for triggers, and if that trigger hits, then it's there. But as far as actual live, no, there's no way. There's no way they have the bandwidth to do that.
Yeah. Have they called you yet?
One time, it was an old Lexus, and after I entered the VIN number and did the computer scan, all of a sudden I made a video about it, and it all of a sudden it came up and it said, "Please wait," and I'm like, "What the heck is this?"
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it was. Apparently, the VIN number that I had scanned and entered was different.
Yeah.
So then I had to go and show them that the VIN number on the dash matched what I had entered, and then off we went. But that's the only time that I've gotten flagged on it yet.
I've had them call me twice. Both times I think it was a Kia or a Hyundai product. Seemed to be the number was the same thing, erratic or whatever, right? And they just asked me to repeat it both times. I repeated it, and they said, "Okay, cool," and then they get off. So I mean, that's been it. But what we're doing, guys and gals, is we're going through the process of inspecting these cars for essentially sale, or if somebody has bought it and wants to sell it, that kind of thing. And you log into the provincial, website, and they're essentially looking at the photos that we take. And you have to have quite a few photos they want photos of the brake thickness for your rotor or your diameter of your drum, pictures of your brake shoes, pictures of your, lots of pictures.
Tires,
tread depth, tire pressure has to be all checked. It's quite a bit. Now, Frank, when they first talked about this, did you kind of go, "Oh crap, these safeties are going to take a lot longer"? Or
no? Not for me. I was excited about it. Yeah. I always tell everyone the people that were doing safeties, they're the ones that went, "Oh crap, what am I going to have to do?" For me, like for you, I've never compromised on my safeties since day one, and I've been doing this 26 years now. Mm-hmm. And so when it came about, I'm like, "Oh, all it's going to be is just entering it into a tablet." I knew it was going to take a little bit longer, but I remember about maybe 10 years ago, I was talking to one of my fellow employees, and I said, "You know what? This would be really cool if it was on a tablet, so that we didn't have to write it down all the time."
That's right.
And lo and behold, here we are. So maybe they were listening to me back then already.
Because I'll tell you, maybe you've seen the same thing in your area. For everybody that's listening, he's in Elmer, Ontario, which he just informed me. is like relatively near London, Ontario. So I thought it was near the Barrie area, and I was completely wrong. So he corrected me on that. But in my area, Frank, we had we had 3 shops shut down that just decided they weren't going to stay open anymore. Now, these were heavy truck shops that were known to do a lot of safeties, and they were like, yeah, we're not piss on this. We're not going to bother, right? It was too much. So that says something quite a bit. Like that's a pretty bold statement to say, as soon as I have to do it this way, I'm not going to bother doing it. Because for the people listening, like the investments that you have to pay to be put in a program and buy the equipment and whatnot is small compared to, what it really means to have it and, your ability to do business and doing inspections. Because essentially, if you're not set up with the program, you can inspect all the cars all you want, but you can't give the people the legal certificate that they need in order to be able to then drive that car and operate it in the province of Ontario.
Yeah, exactly. We had a few shops in our area too that the shops didn't shut down, but they just wouldn't do safeties anymore. And for me, I said right away, my wife and I run the shop together. And I said to her, when this first came up, I said, we're definitely doing this. I don't care what it costs. Like, even if it was going to be $10,000, I would have done it. Because I said, the revenue that we're going to get out of it is going to be far outweigh the cost. And it has. Like, the amount of safeties that we have done in the last year is probably about, I would say 60, maybe 70% more than we did in the years before.
Wow.
Yeah. It's been phenomenal, the amount of safeties that we do, stuff that other shops just won't touch anymore. Like motorcycles is one that I did probably 20, 25 last month of motorcycle safeties. Shops around here won't do the annual yellow stickers anymore on trailers.
Right.
So we do a ton of those. So we've really benefited from getting signed up and being part of this program instead of just sitting back and saying, oh, I guess I'm not going to do it now.
Yeah, and I know some shops, like, they continued to do them, but they started, like, the cost of what they were charging the customer to do a safety, they put it up quite a bit to offset the cost of the new equipment. And then the fact that, like, everybody was like, oh, it's going to take 2 people. One guy's going to have to run the camera and the other guy, has to hold the measuring. I've gotten pretty good to where I can whip through one in about 35 minutes. Now, when I say whip through, what I mean is, like, I've already pre-inspected the car.
And everything is apart.
Everything is apart. And then it's like, okay, so I'm getting my key measurements that I have to get. You can hold the tablet with one hand, put your tire pressure gauge on, get a reading, tread depth, all that kind of stuff. Now it's a shitty tablet.
It's uncomfortable. It's heavy. I had problems with my wrist for a while until it got used to it. It was really heavy.
The lighting sucks, especially in my new shop. The lighting is terrible. So there's often some creative ways to hold the light. And
have you put a light on the back of your tablet yet?
So I was going to ask you what, like, later on, you'll have to show me what kind of light.
I'll send you a link to the light that I got. It works really well.
Because I find that's when you're sticking it in a wheel well or something like that. My shop is really dark, really dark. You kind of you're trying to hold a work light with your right hand, and it's like you're getting a glare on the screen, and then, like, it's a lot. But
that's the first thing I said when I went to the training session. They said that how nice the pictures needed to be, and I'm like, there ain't no way. Like, I really need a light everywhere I go. And I said, I'm going to need a good light. So the first thing I did is I bought a light that I could clip on the back of it. So it makes it much, much better. Like, being able to take those pictures is just like click, click, instead of trying to get the light on the freaking tablet to work. It doesn't work with crap.
Yeah. So when the prices went up, I know a lot of shops just were like, they were so scared that they were going to lose the used car business. That, the used cars were going to look up immediately, the used car lots, for the cheapest place to get a safety done. We had a few people in my area that were like, oh, I'm going to leave my prices down because, like, I get all that work. But did you put your price up, Frank?
We did, actually, quite a bit. Margarita, my wife Margarita, she was like, you know what? Everyone else is going to go up in prices. We started hearing what the prices were in the cities, like in London and stuff like that. Yeah. And of course, we're not going to compare to that because our labor rate doesn't compare to them or anything like that. But she's like, you know what? We need to go. I think this is what we need to do. So what she did is she actually called all of the shops that we would normally deal with in the area and say, look, this is what our labor rate needs to be at. This is what our safety checks need to be at. And this is the blah, blah, blah. And surprisingly, she got most everybody on board to get to a certain level. So now it was kind of like a level playing field between the shops, that it wasn't like we were competing against one had a way cheaper safety check rate than the other one. So that worked out really well. But you said about the used cars, we actually, surprisingly, we have one used car lot that we do probably between 3 to 5 safeties for them a week, because they're so busy they can't keep up with all of them. So they just send them over and we do all the work for them and do the safeties for them. And so far they haven't complained. So I guess the prices
That's
are
good.
well, I mean, everyone realizes what it is.
Well,
and as far as the reason why the prices went up so much for us, is that our insurance, like we had somebody on TikTok said, "Oh, you weren't properly insured." We were properly insured, but because we had to go now to a 3 million liability or something like that, our insurance went up 40%. And I was like, holy cow. Yeah. So that made a huge difference on our monthly payment. And I'm like, well, it's got to compensate somewhere. So if you want the safety checks, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah. Very cool. I love that your wife went and actually did that, because I keep saying so many times in this industry, I really think whether it's pricing on anything, we need to be more in line with each other and do stuff like that. Now, when I suggested to other places, in other groups and other forums, they call that collusion, I guess. And it's not really, it's kind of frowned upon. But I mean, I hats off to your wife for doing that and trying to get everybody in the local area to be, not undercutting each other, right? Like I just, that's the part of this industry I can't stand, is somebody always do it for $5 cheaper. It drives me crazy.
Well, that's what I always tell everyone. I said, I'd rather them come to me because they like me and they like the work that I do, not because I'm $5 cheaper than the next guy.
Right.
If they want some cheap labor rate, you whatever, go ahead. If they're coming to me because they want the work done properly and they want it done right. So I feel good that I'm not out there being the cheapest guy and getting all the work, and that I'm rather people are there because they want to be there.
Of your reputation, yeah. So let's back up a little bit and kind of tell me your backstory, because like you mentioned in one of your TikTok videos how you had worked for another local shop for quite a few years, and then now he brings you all of his cars to be safetied. So how did you get into this crazy industry?
Yeah, okay. So actually, I've been doing this right out of high school. I was actually, when I was in grade 12, I was in the automotive class, and all of a sudden the teacher comes up and he said, there's one of the local garages in town that wants an apprentice. And so they asked me for 3 names, and you're one of them that I want to send over there.
Okay.
Like, okay, cool. Like I was still in school. I had no intention of even looking for a job or anything. Like, I figured I'd have to do it eventually. So anyway, I went for the interview, and it was at a muffler shop, believe it or not. So, and the reason he hired me is because I spoke Low German, right? So I'm bilingual, and there's a lot of Low German people in our area. And so he told me later, he said, that's the reason I gave you the job. Super nice guy. So I worked for him for, it was only 6 years, because did my apprenticeship. I got my license, and basically at the time it was about maybe 4 months after I got my license. Then he was getting ready to close shop. He was going to retire. He sold the property, and so then I went and worked for this other guy, and that's who I worked for 14 years. That's my long stretch, and I was just, I was basically managing his shop. It was a used car dealership. I was the head technician. Like, I was his first technician to begin with. He had just been open a year. Right. So I was his first technician. We went through a ton of other employees and apprentices and all that kind of stuff. And so then it was like I was already running his shop. I always say I was running his shop except for the money side. He would never, other than, payments and stuff like that. But other than that, I was basically managing and running the whole business for him.
My name is Alvin. I'm a mechanic here at FS Automotive. With TechMetric, I can do a complete DVI, which is the visual inspection, take a picture, send it to Miss Wendy, the service writer, and then she can inform the customer and she can send over the pictures I saw. So basically 3 sets of eyes on everything. So it kind of makes it easier on both sides for the customer and for the mechanic as well. So it kind of really bridges the gap. And like I said, customers feel better with it. A lot of people are honest, but there's a lot of dishonest people out there. I'm just gonna go ahead and tell the truth, shame the devil. Anyway, but with TechMetric, you kind of eliminate that questionable area, that gray area, I guess you could say, because they can see what you're seeing and then they feel more comfortable with it. Overall, the system is jam up. I love it.
And one day I woke up and I'm like, I'm looking at my wife and I look at myself and I'm like, I can't retire on this. Like, I'm not going to be able to do this. And then the seed was planted. Like my brother, my wife, they've been constantly like, oh, you should have your own shop. No, I never wanted to. I had no desire ever to have my own shop.
Right.
And they kept saying, oh, you should do it. You should do it. You should do it. And I'm like, I just don't want to. And then one day when I'm like, I can't retire on this. And then I'm like, okay, maybe it's time. So then I started looking, and we actually looked at, like, man, I don't know how many properties and how many shops we looked at, and we put an offer in one and it fell through. And we did it here and it fell through. And we're like 4 or 5 of them that we fell through. And finally this one other local shop, I've been, when we were doing all the e-tests, so he was pretty smart in the e-tests, and so I never had a question. I would call him up and talk to him. And one day he's like, hey, why don't you come work for me? And I said, no, I'm good where I am. I'm happy. Like, I live, I think it's about 900 meters from my house where I was working. So I was like, ride my bicycle or walk or whatever. I said, no, I'm good. And then he comes up and he says, how about if I sell you my shop? Will you come work for me? And I'm like, okay, that's enticing, because that's exactly what I wanted to do. So yeah, he's like, so we talked about it and made the decision, okay, we're going to do this. So put in my notice. The last 2 weeks were pure hell. I should have just walked out the door instead of giving them 2 weeks. But anyway, I went over there and it was whatever. I didn't really enjoy it, but I was there and I was working. I got all my banking figured out, my financing and stuff like that. And I go to him and I said, okay, I'm ready to buy your shop. And he's like, oh, so this is 6 months after I started working there. And he's like, I'm not ready to sell. I'm like, oh, really? What about me? And he's like, well, you can keep working for me. And I said, nope. So then we're on the hunt again, looking for something. So
man, that sucked.
That sucked. Yeah, that was. So then it took another 3 months. And then we finally found the shop where we're in now. It was basically an abandoned building. This guy had bought this abandoned property. And if you look up Elmer Meat Packers, there was a story about it 25 years ago, a huge ordeal. Anyway,
Okay.
been shut down for years and years. So this guy bought the property cheap, was renovating all through, and this building that we're in was still unoccupied. And somebody else told me about it and went with him, and we made a deal, and here we are. It's been like in March was 5 years that we've been in there. And I wish I could expand now, because we're quite busy and overflowing with work. So
how much, like, I see your wife is with you a lot at the shop, and I see sometimes you post a video, she's doing some repairs and everything, which I think is cool as heck. You have any other people?
Yeah. So I consider us a pretty family-run business. So our daughter's boyfriend, he is the office manager, so he works in the office. And then my wife's nephew is actually our apprentice. So that's who we have working for us right now. We've gone through some employees over the years. I've had some other apprentices, just some other employees and stuff like that. But this is what we got right now, and it's working out pretty good. And we were just talking this weekend about, I think that we're going to have to take the initiative and sign Margarita up as an apprentice and get her license, just for the sake of what she's already been able to do. She said on the weekend, she said, I think I'm ready to start changing engines. I'm like, I said, honey, you ain't there yet. You're gonna be there soon, but not quite yet.
What a thing to want to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like, really, right?
That I think will wear off really quick after your third one. Nah, I don't want to anymore.
I told her Buick Enclave needs a torque converter. So why don't we start with that? Why don't you see if you can pull a transmission out and change a torque converter?
Well, so I got to ask, because I always wonder, the guy that kind of gave you the shaft for 6 months like that, what happened to him?
Still in business. Yeah, we've done a little bit of business back and forth. We're good. But Yeah, I don't think he's probably not going to retire. He's not old enough to just hang up this hat and
Right.
and give it up. So I think he'll probably be there another 10, 15 years at least.
Seems funny though why he changed his why be so fickle and change his mind like that. Whether because some shops get taken over by people they hire, right? Like the previous employer I had, that was kind of the agreement, is he wanted out and it was in a lot of debt, and he hired this really good technician who was looking to buy a business, and that's how they kind of came together. And he worked with him for, I think it was like 14 months, paid a bunch of the debt down to where it was worth something again, and they signed the papers and he walked away with it for a very good price. But like, what do you think was his reasoning? Just
I've talked to more people since then, and I'm not the first and I'm not the last to get that story.
Yeah, so
I don't know if that was his way of recruiting employees or what, but it seemed like it after the ordeal was over. I think that was maybe one way of doing it.
Shady operation, man.
Yeah, it sucked. But I mean, it got me out of a place. Like I said, I worked for this other shop for 14 years. I was comfortable. I was happy. Like, I was generally happy. I love my job. I always have. And I was comfortable, right? It was, like I say, right close to work. If I needed time off, I just take time off. It was no big deal. I could do whatever I want.
Yeah.
So yeah, it helped get me out of my comfort zone into a position where, like, okay, now I got to do something.
But that was the right step for you, right? Was to go into business for yourself, for sure.
100%. I don't regret it one bit.
That's
good. Not one bit.
No. That's good. Because obviously in the circles I run with, I talk to a lot of shop owners that, have been in 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, and they still wish they never had. You know what I mean? They still wish they
really
gotten out. Yeah. I talked to a young man made a post where he said he'd been in it, I think, 5 years, and he realizes finally that he should never be in business. He just doesn't have he's not cut out for it, he says. So, not in words. I think I talk about it all the time. Some people, and again, I'm not like, if there's, my detractors will say that I'm not like, I don't have really any sympathy at all. And I just have always been very good with separating like the business side from the empathy. It is what it is. It's just business. And like, my heart doesn't break for somebody if they are struggling to try and fix their car, because I don't see cars as rights. I see them as privileges. And, that's kind of the way I've always looked at it. But I see a lot of shop owners that have a very hero complex, and, they do it at the financial loss of themselves. So I think that that's what we're starting to see more of them, is just like, man, I ended up, you've heard the term probably, buying yourself a job, right? Where they bought themselves a job and they worked 60 hours a week. And, at the end of the year, they put the same or a little bit less money in their pocket than if they had just stayed at the employer that they had. Now, some of that freedom that you get and the responsibility and all that kind of stuff is, for them, is worth it. But that's not really, I think, when we sign up to take on a business as our own, is we are willing to just accept that. It's not like the end goal. And I think that's what too many realize, is they don't keep on their numbers and realize, shit, I was here too many days and worked too hard, too much liability, and I didn't make, 6 figures last year. You know what I mean? Just round numbers, right? Throwing numbers out. So
yeah, for sure. There's always that. And as a shop owner, you do tend to have a little bit of empathy for people, because I see the prices of parts, and it's been astronomical. Like, I had a caravan, my neighbor's caravan, we always pick it up and deliver it because they're right across the road, and like $111 for a rotor. I'm like, this is crazy. But like, thank you, COVID, for half of that, and now whatever else is going on. But it's like, I feel bad for people having to fix their cars. I know my daughter had made a comment a little while ago. She's like, if Dad wasn't a mechanic, we'd all have to buy new cars because we couldn't afford to repair ours. I'm like, it's honestly true. Like,
and the new
stuff to repair cars,
ridiculous. Like, we just priced, I think it was probably a 2019 Cash Guy radiator fan, cooling fan. It's over $500 just for the part to buy from the dealer. Like, that to me is just like, I can remember like buying caravan cooling motors, fan motors, for like $100. You know what I mean? Like the OE ones, I can remember pricing them down on the estimate for like $180 in 2003. Like, so now when I see $200 for a tiny little thing, and I'm just like, this is, and then the labor's even more. Like it's going to be a $900 repair by the time we're done. And this is I work at a used car lot now, and this is a car that we just sold the customer 6 months ago. And she came in the other day. She actually called. She was like 3 blocks away, and she says, it overheated. Bunch of green stuff came out, and we're like, oh shit, green stuff, that could have been the CVT fluid. Like, this is not going to be good. Well, it's a stick shift, so it's not CVT fluid, it's the bluish green kind of Nissan antifreeze. But everybody's like, well, why did she not have any kind of warning? And I'm like, well, she had the warning on the heat gauge, but those fans, unless they go open circuit, they almost never turn on the check engine light. So you pretty much have to unplug them before that does. So unbeknownst to her, hot day like this, we don't know how long the fan hasn't been working, but she's now. So we gave her an estimate, ordered the part's going to take a week before it even gets here. Like,
really?
Oh yeah, it's the part supply is just, it's terrible. It's terrible. It's awful, and we don't want to try an aftermarket one. So we're going with the OE, which is, we could get an aftermarket one faster, but we've had some issues with aftermarket cooling fans before.
Mm-hmm. It's causing. Once you get a bad taste for some of the aftermarket stuff, then you just try to avoid it with all costs.
So when we were talking about safeties and whatnot. You kind of talked about how, like you said, your former employer now brings you all his, but you've been always steadfast on what was like, it either passes or it doesn't. And you and I kind of had a conversation where, like, the safety standards, the regs as we call them here, is very laid out on what passes and what doesn't in terms of minimum brake thickness, minimum tread depth, all that kind of stuff. You and I are kind of on the same page that the minimums are like too low. And even though the regs say you can pass it, you're the same way I think that I am. I'm not passing it with like almost bald tires and almost shop brakes, right? Like I'm
not even close. Yeah. Like I was looking at regulations to say for motorbikes, the tread depth 1.5 millimeters. Like if you have any, that's the thickness of your fingernail almost. Like that's ridiculous. Like I ride a motorbike and I know that I don't want to ride a bike with a tire that bald or the pads at 1 millimeter or 1.5 millimeter thickness. Like, and when you try to explain it to a customer and they're like, most of them don't understand. And I always tell them, I said, if you don't know why I'm telling you that this fails, go look this up. Go on Google and look up the PDF, the light duty safety standards. Look it up and it'll tell you, and it's right there. But my biggest issue with the regulations is that everyone interprets them differently, right?
Yeah.
Like you look at, I had one guy ask me, he says, I hear that any rust hole in the car fails. Like if you have a hole in your fender and any rust fails. And I'm like, that's not what it says. That's not what the regulations say. It doesn't say that any rust hole fails. If a rust hole is in a particular spot, or if it deems the car structurally unsound, that's when it starts to fail, right? But people just get this idea that now, like, anything that's rusty will just fail, and it just we just did one. Stop making noise. We just did one where the customer had said, "Oh, I don't think those tires are going to pass." It was a used car lot, and had negotiated new tires in the sale, and so they brought it to us for safety. Brought the new tires for us to put on, and I'm like, what's with these tires? And then Margarita called them up and she's like, oh yeah, they negotiated a deal. Well, they ended up with probably shittier tires than the original one because it had Pirellis on it. Now they ended up with Salem tires. And I'm like, I don't think that they know what they just did. They just gave away some really good tires that were at 50%.
Yeah.
For shitty tires that are going to wear out faster.
Yeah.
So some people just get an idea that it has to be a certain way. But yeah, if it gets close to the minimum regulations, forget it. It's not worth it.
And it's the same as like, because we were talking in a story I had years ago. I had a tie rod that had some play in it, and I signed a safety on it for when I was working at the dealership because it was within the allowable spec. And my sales manager at the time was like, if it passes, it passes, ship it out. Well, of course, That customer that bought that, and it didn't clunk, it didn't wander, it wasn't wearing the tire yet, it just had some play. That customer, out of the 100 cars that ever buys, right, people buy, she actually took it to her mechanic after she bought it and had it checked over, and he found play in the tie rod. So, of course, that comes the whole thing. They call the MTO, and, the MTO officers show up at my shop and sit down with me and go over the paperwork and go over the inspection. And, we put the car on the hoist and measure it. And, yes, it's within the allowable spec. And I keep saying, and I talked about this in TikTok, and it was life-changing for me because the officer sitting right there with the copy of the regs opened up says, well, you can pass that and you're within your rights, but you can fail it and we'll back you as well for failing it. And I looked at him right in the face and I said, so what do I do? And he says, that's up to you to decide.
And it's always been that way. Yeah.
Yes. And that's when I decided that, like, any play is a fail. Because it could be one pothole, within 36 days, right, Frank, is what we used to be said all the time, is after 36 days, the wheel could fly off, and everybody thought we were safe because it was within 36 days of when we inspected it. That's not the case anymore, right?
Well, even then, it was never the case.
No.
There's a story years ago of a guy who safety checked a taxi, and it was about, 45 days after the safety check, that taxi was in a massive accident. Like, forget if someone died in it, but it was like a serious accident. Well, that tech ended up in jail, and I think it was in London here is where it happened. That tech went to jail because they proved, or claimed that they proved, that he was negligent in what he did on the safety. And it was way past the 36 days.
Right.
So that was one of the stories that always stuck with me. It says, you know what? Basically, if you safety this, you're married to it for life, for the life of whatever that part, the life of the car. It's not really, there's no really time limit. If they can go back and say and prove that you were negligent or you let something go, even if it's 2 years ago, you're going to get hooked on it. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And so I always pride myself if I see a car that I safetied 10 years ago, still driving.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, lost you there for a second.
Oh, you're back. You just a little
so, yeah. So if I see a car that's been like 10 years ago that I safetied, still driving on the road, I'm like, I guess I did it right. But I mean, obviously it's been maintained since then. But I always tell everyone, I said, like, once we safety it, our name is on that in indefinite time. Like, there really is no time limit as to how far they could go back, as long as they can prove that when you did it, you were negligent, right?
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. And when you go in front of the court, the gentleman from MTO, he told me, and it's sunk in my brain, if you should be called into court, the judge will take the regs and throw that book right out the window. And it'll come down to they'll ask you, who is the expert in this, you or the motorist? Well, I am. So did you think it was safe at the time? Well, I kind of, that's when you're done right there. Because like they your job is to advocate for the people that don't know, right? That's what we as professionals are supposed to be doing, is to say, the car is safe. Well, there's not a gray area in that a lot of the time for me anymore. Do I feel that it's safe now? Yes. Do I feel like it's going to be safe a year from now? Yes. Now, somebody could go drive 80,000 kilometers on the darn thing, right? But what we're looking at a lot lately now is like structural stuff, the article I shared from the CBS News, I don't know if you got a chance to see it, Frank, the 2008 Tucson that the lady bought, paid $5,000, 2008 Tucson. That's a red flag right there. And then she has like a week, 2 weeks or something, and the engine fails. So she takes it into her mechanic, the guy that sells her the car for $5,000. I think he was a curbsider, which, we know what they can be like. And
that's for people, a whole different game.
What we refer to as a curbsider up here is people are essentially like that are buying and flipping cars without the license that you're supposed to have to be a registered dealer, in a nutshell. Like it's a whole other deeper than that, but he's a curbsider. So he agrees to cover the cost of replacing the engine. He probably supplies a used engine, and she takes it to her mechanic that she knows, which again, she should have taken the car to the mechanic before buying the car. But I digress. They put the car on the rack where the control arm bolts up to the subframe, tore right off. Subframe is completely rotten in this 2008 Tucson, which is not surprising. It's almost a 20-year-old Tucson. It's going to be rusted.
Mm-hmm.
So then they go digging. Obviously, MTO gets called in and they look. Well, the car had been safety just within a month before, obviously, she was right?
Yep.
Well, now it was safety at a Canadian Tire. And Canadian Tire, is a goodwill gesture to the young lady, gave her $5,000. But they also lost their ability to do inspections till the end of August.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. Which is a slap on the wrist, I guess. Like, you know, like, I mean, I don't think, Frank, if they came into your shop and that went down, that you'd only be losing 2 months, is what I guess what I'm trying to say. It'd be hard on you.
Well, I'm surprised that the tech, whoever signed it, should have been shut. Like his license should have been revoked.
Yeah,
anyone who signs something like that, right? I've actually I see them all the time on Marketplace. People advertising safety checks for sale. So I've been messaging with this one guy.
All that, yeah.
I'm like, hey, I've got this Chevy Cruze that won't pass because the rocker panels are rotted out of it. I said, it's got new tires and brakes on it, but I don't have the $1,500. And so I'm leading the guy on. And he's like, oh, yeah, guaranteed pass, no problem. And I'm like, so how in the heck? Like, who regulates this stuff? Like, if anyone can just, like, you and I could just sign a safety on something like that and just whatever, right? But if there's no no one regulating it and no one reviewing the stuff, that why are we even doing it? Like, I know it's nice to have the cars safe on the road, but at the end of the day, we get shady guys like that do it all the time. What's the point of us being so stupid strict and making customers fix all this stuff, other than for our own conscience and for the sake of the safety of our customers?
Yeah, and and the rocker panel thing is I find so many people have they want to argue that contentious point, and I don't like. To me, it's such a stupid point to argue, because it's a structural member, and if it's that rotten, it's probably allowing some fumes to go in the car, so it fails twice. Two different factors for me, right? That's the way I look at it. But people are like, well, I drove cars for years, and the car can essentially be safe, and we don't condemn cars every day when the rocker panels are starting to go. Well, maybe they don't, but I know lots of times if a customer comes into my shops that I've worked at in the past and they're buying $1,000 worth of tires and $1,000 worth of brakes and the rocker panels are gone, before I'm tabling that estimate to that customer, I'm having a real good conversation with them about, is this really what you want to spend your money on? Because this car is Swiss cheese. My own brother had what year was it? 2011 Ford Ranger. And we just retired the car and sent it to the scrapyard, because when you opened the door and lifted the driver's floor mat, you could see through. There was no floor pan left under there.
They're really bad for that.
And so it kind of was like, I felt bad because he's now without a car yet. He hasn't replaced it. But at the same time, he was going to put 4 tires and a needed front and rear brakes. It was over $1,000 for my cost to buy the parts. And then, I'm not going to charge him labor, but it's still, and I'm sitting here saying to him, like, do you really want to do this? Because it's not, I don't feel good about you driving it, and it's not good investment at this point. And he agreed. So it went to the junkyard. But when we're not advocating for our customers the right way, and we just, put tires and put brakes on it, it doesn't matter if it's holy or, I don't think that's the right thing to do in this industry. Even if we're not signing a safety, I think it's just poor business.
Well, I had just a Caravan on the hoist just earlier this week. Came in for an oil change, and I pulled her in the shop and I said, come look at this. Like, I just want to show you where your van is at. Like, this thing is really rotten. I said, if you have a major repair, like if something goes and if it's going to cost you $500, $600, $700, you probably shouldn't put any more money into it.
Right.
So if you're just doing oil changes, no problem. But anything major, you might want to consider. So he's like, oh, yeah, I guess I should go look for a van. And I'm like, well, yeah, I think it's time that you consider the fact that we're not going to be able to lift this. And that's what I always tell people. Like, so if it gets to the point where I can't lift it on the hoist,
that's right.
You need to do something about this. You need to like either repair it or replace it. And that's just the name of the game. Like, we live in this rust belt, and cars are going to rot away no matter what you do.
Yeah.
And So eventually you're just going to have to get rid of them because they're too rotten.
It really breaks my heart though, Frank, when I see somebody and we have that kind of conversation though, and they say, well, I just bought this thing 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like that's the hard pill for me to still be that person, right? Is because they, you know what it's like 2 years ago, they're probably still paying for it, you know, or they just paid it off, right?
Baby. And the reality of it is you could buy a car and if you do not oil it or spray it at all, and it's just a little bit rusty, and 2 years later, it can have significant holes in it. I've seen it.
Oh yeah.
It 100% can happen. Like the amount of rust that we have around here, 2 years is doing good for cars that just never touched.
Yeah. Equinoxes and Kias. All Kias and Equinoxes for some reason. And like you said, Caravans, man, they rust fast up here. It's ridiculous. Like, you know, we get looking at 3.6s like the Pentastar engine issues, and we start looking at the engine issues. Well, sometimes the best way to make that engine job go away is just look at the rest of the Caravan, because it probably is not worth putting camshafts in. Not that you can buy a cam for a 3.6 right now. They're back ordered for 40,000 units, right? Like you're not buying cam. Yeah.
I haven't had to put a cam in a while. I just did lifters and rockers, but not cam in a while. So
you got lucky on that one. I drive a 15 Wrangler, and I'm very lucky it's not ticking yet, but I mean, it knows that when it starts to tick, it's going to get traded. So because I'm not like, it's, you know, I can get the parts for pretty cheap still. I have friends at the dealer, and I have a guy that has done thousands of them. So he'd come down and give me a hand doing it. But I mean, like, if you can't get the parts for it, what am I going to do? You know, I'm not even going to entertain the notion. How do you handle it when the customer comes in and they say, well, I don't think I think it should pass. What do you do? How do you have that conversation?
You know what? There's a good one. We had just a couple of weeks ago, a customer come in with a motorbike that I failed. And it's the exact same bike that I ride, a 92 Honda Shadow 1100.
Okay.
And I failed it on, I have to try to remember. One of the things I failed it on is that the stupid thing wouldn't idle.
Okay.
And you had to have the choke on like halfway before it would even idle and stay running. And so we told him that, and he's like, oh, it's just a carburetor. That's how carburetors work. And then Margarita's like, well, my bike doesn't do that.
Yeah.
I started up, and 45 seconds later, it's running. And he's like, oh, no, it's just that way. And I'm like, no, I don't care. There was something else. I think it was a tire or something on it. But he was arguing. And he's like, no, it's fine. Like, I don't want to spend a lot of money into it. I'm just going to ride it for the summer. And I said, I don't care. I don't care. I know, and again, because I personally ride the same bike, I know how this bike should feel. Oh, that was the other thing, the clutch. Clutch didn't feel right.
Okay.
And I said to him, it's not right. I don't know what's wrong with it because I don't work on motorbikes. Something isn't right. All I know is it doesn't feel right because I have the same bike. And so he argued me, and like you said, I don't want to spend a lot of money into it. I said, okay, then go buy a bike that's all done and ready to go if you don't want to spend money into this one. But these are the things that you're going to have to do. And I just have over the years, I guess, like I do have empathy for people, but in this case here, like in this kind of situations, I don't care. Like this is what it takes to pass the safety.
Yeah.
I got one that's at the shop right now. The customer just wants it so they can go take his family and go work in the field. So they're just going to drive from home to the fields to work and back.
Yeah.
And right now we're waiting on a tire because it's a journey and no one has a used tire for a journey. So we're waiting on a new tire for it. But he's like, it actually came from a used car lot, and the salesman called. He says, you know what? It's just going to the field. Like it. I said, so I don't care. Needs a tire. Like let's get a tire on it.
Yeah.
And I don't give in. I don't care. I don't give in. I made a video. Maybe it was about a year ago, something like that, where a really, really rotten truck came in, and so I put all the money into the holes of the truck, and I'm like, oh, that passes. Oh, that passes.
Yeah.
And I made the video and posted it just before we went on holidays. And here I am in Mexico, laying on the beach, and I'm watching my TikTok videos, and people are like, oh, this guy passes cars. I'm like, oh shit, I'm gonna have to make a follow-up video on this. Like, I don't actually take bribes. I never have. So I don't. I've never have people have tried to offer me bribes in the past, and I just like, sorry, like I don't care.
That's so crazy to me, right? Because it's like you think sometimes what people are willing to spend to bribe you to do it.
Yeah. To get a fake safety.
Yeah, when the proper repair probably doesn't even cost a whole lot more. Now, I understand if it's a rot box, like nobody's going to put, like my brother's Ranger. Could you weld floor pans in that? Sure, you could. My dad was a bodyman. I can do it. I welded floor pans in a couple of Cherokees I've owned. Rockers, the whole thing. Am I going to do it? Not anymore. Not and stand behind it the way, because A, I'm not a bodyman, and B, body shops cost a lot of money now. So if you take a car to them, like a Chevy Cruze or a Caravan or something, go, I want this thing fixed up properly, they're going to look at you like you're crazy, because you're going to spend a lot of money on getting it done properly. That's the key word, properly, because we've seen some rocker panel jobs that like not proper. All for what? Just to keep a Chevy Cruze on the road? Like, it's a Chevy Cruze. Like it's
yes.
We never thought we would make a Cavalier worse, but we did,
Yeah, really. Actually, I like the Chevy Cruzes. My son and my daughter's boyfriend, they both drive one, and really, I think they're a nice car, but it is a cheap car, and it's cheap on fuel, so that's the only benefit that it has.
Yeah.
Speaking of the rocker panels, I had a Ford, I don't know, whatever it was, a Ford car anyway, and it had a hole in the rocker panel, so of course I failed it. Well, the guy who was safetying it, his father-in-law is a body man, and so he's gonna, he did a job and he welded new rocker panels in it, and brought it to me, and so I like just lifted up on where the rocker panels normally would be, where the lift points would be, and it's folded in a bit, and I'm like,
yeah,
what the heck? So I talked to him later about it, like he's a friend of mine, and I said, hey, like when I lifted this car, it folded in. He's like, oh no. When you fix rocker panels like that, you don't ever lift it on them again. I'm like, that goes against all the greens that I have, because if I ever repair a rocker panel, it's usually stronger than OE. Like if I can't lift it on that from when I've welded it before and after, then I didn't do the job right.
Yeah.
And so I was like, this kind of sucks.
And why that happens, because there wasn't enough metal on the backside of that to weld on to get a good weld.
There's always at least 3 layers of metal, especially where the pinch weld is, where the lift point is. And if you don't replace all 3 metals, it's not going to be strong enough.
I watched my dad do some pretty, not creative isn't the right word, but he spent a lot of time, having to put metal back just so that he could get his inner quarter and his outer rocker to come together and make, and we're talking cars that still had frames, but which is where you're supposed to be lifting them now. So, I mean, I understand the concept. So when I see some rocker jobs and it's like, you can look down the side of the car at your front, mud flap, and you can look and see the back tire, that's not done right. Like, yes, rocker panel on it now, but it has to be sealed off and the whole thing. And that's just, I remember stuff like, having one new strut in it on one side and one old strut on the other, and same with calipers and stuff, like, and I know I probably should pass that, but I don't. You know what I mean? I don't do it, and I know that I can. I just, I'm of the. I was trained a long time ago that if you do a caliper on one side, you do it on the other. If you do a strut on one side, you do it on the other. Like, that's just the way I am.
And see, I agree with the struts to the sake of it's going to create a different suspension jounce when you're braking, whether you have a new strut or an old strut. The calipers is one thing that I was a little bit, I don't know, I'm so sure about that, because I would say that at what point do you draw the line there? So if you say, okay, you do one caliper, you're going to do the other caliper, or you're going to do both brake hoses at the same time, then I say, well, okay, somebody said, well, if one's bad, the other one's going to be bad soon. I said, yeah, you could look at that, but where do you draw the line? At what point do you stop? So if your left headlight bulb burns out, do you replace the right one as well?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So I've always looked at it this way. I'm like, okay, you're doing a brake job. and your left caliper, you got one piston seized if it's a dual piston, and the other, on the other side, the caliper goes in nice and free and everything is fine. Yeah, good idea to replace both. Is it financially feasible for most people nowadays? Probably not, but you give them the risk. You say, look, we could replace it now while we have it all apart, saves you this amount of labor. Or, you know what, if something does happen later on down the road, well, you're going to need caliper pads and probably a rotor. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the customers say, go ahead and do it. Most of the time they'll say, you know what, I'm only going to do one. As far as from a safety point of view, I don't know. I look at it this way. The brakes work properly and everything is nice and free and lubed up and sliding the way that it should be, I'll pass one caliper on one side and an old caliper on the other side, mm-hmm. because I know that the brakes are functioning the way that they should.
Right. Yeah. No, that's good points. I'm always worried because it's like the same thing. Like, how do we warranty that then, right? Because, you see it where you called up the parts store. You probably had it happen to you, and you call them up and they go, I need a pair of rotors. And they go, I got one rotor. Like, we know how that happened, right? Like, uneven amounts of numbers for rotors, but we know that something is locked up on one side and they put one on, right? That's always how I think about how am I going to warranty that in the future? Because, like, say the car is 7 years old and it's like a Caravan and I put one rear caliper on the left-hand side and the right side winds back in, but, we know how problematic they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And in 6 months' time, he comes in and that caliper's smoking and the pads are worn right down and something. Like, do I warranty the pads and make my vendor eat it even though they really shouldn't because it's not a defect, it's a workmanship thing? Or, and they warranty the rotor for me? Like, I'm then beating up, I guess what I'm trying to say, on my vendor, really. You know what I mean? Which I understand is, a different conversation too, but
no, I understand. And I've been in that situation before. And again, as a shop owner, it makes it even harder because now you're like, you made this recommendation to them and sold them that job. And now what do you do? But most customers are pretty good to understand, be like, okay, well, that caliper, everything was good on it. And I mean, caliper seize up. That just happens in this area.
Yeah.
And I'll never make my vendor eat the pads. If anything, if I feel like maybe I should have been it, I'll eat the pads, right? Okay. But what you were saying before about one rotor on one side, if unless I'm machining the rotors, and I'm still one of the few shops around that still got a brake lathe to machine rotors.
Right on.
So unless I'm machining the rotors, if it's a new rotor on one side, it's a new rotor on the other side. Because I've had situations in the past, especially front rotors, if you put one new one on one side, one used one on it, man, this car pulled so bad. I couldn't understand why. And this is when I was first in the business, first in the career. Like, I didn't understand. And it wasn't, I hadn't done the job. It came from another shop, came to us. And I'm like, every time I brake, it just, and I'm like, what the heck is going on? So I'm replacing the hose because I thought maybe it was the hoses. I replaced the caliper. And eventually I was talking to a senior tech that I had used to work with a few years back. And he's like, what about the rotors? And they said, well, it looks like it's got a new one on one side and a used one on the other side. And he said, that would be a problem right there. Wow, we replaced the rotors, problem solved. And I'm like, ever since then, and I think I heard you say that a few times, ever since then, right? Like, since we've had a situation, something that we've learned over the years, these are the rules that we made in our own minds, in our own lives, that we're like, this is just how I'm going to do it from now on, because I know that if I don't, this is the outcome, and I don't like that outcome.
Yeah. It's tough, isn't it? Like, sometimes, I mean, and that's what I love about this industry, because I'm learning something every day still. Doing this a long time too. Like, how old are you?
45.
Yeah, so I'm older than you. So, I mean, I still learn something every day, and then it's the same thing. But sometimes, like, when I think about those, things that taught me a lesson, part of me goes back and goes, well, was it just a one-off though, Frank? Or was it really something that was supposed to be teaching me a lesson, right? Like, am I getting to be too gun shy because of a one-off, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But I think at the end of the day, I just have to, stick to what I think is the right thing to do and advocate for my customer's vehicle and advocate for my customer and go forward and I sleep, like we were talking last week there. You have no problem sleeping at night. I have no problem sleeping at night over what's designed for safety. Right? It's just
and I'll always be like that. And I always make myself, if I am unsure about something, it's not going to happen, right? And as long as I can feel good about it, hey, then let's go.
Yeah.
But yeah, what you're saying about whether it's a one-off and that's, how we live our life after that. I guess in a way you could look at it that way, or you could let it say, well, I learned from that one-off situation and it never happens again because I made this choice and I do it this way, right? So I don't know if it was a one-off because it never happened again, or is it because I do this that it never happens again? And it could have been like happened every time. So it's interesting to think whether it's an actual learning experience or if it's just a fluke that you do it this way now or something like that, right?
Now, when you talked about your wife, you're going to enter into the apprenticeship program. I kind of always because of who I network with so many people in, the great United States and up here, right? We have a completely different thing going on. This apprenticeship program than it's such a foreign concept to them is what I'm trying to say. I'm going to assume that you're probably like an advocate, you're a proponent for the apprenticeship system, but what do you think it needs to be? Like, where can it be improved on?
Oh, wow. See, the thing is, I haven't been an apprentice for a lot of years, but I've run a lot of apprentices through, and man, how many have I had over the years? I've had a lot. And I've only had one or two now that have been since I've been a shop owner, but when I was that manager at the other shop, we ran through a lot of apprentices. And we actually went through, we signed up with the OEAP program. Have you heard of that one?
Yeah.
And so that I think is a phenomenal program, and it really starts to fast track people into the industry. But the problem is that they're going to fast track people that maybe aren't ready. But the ones that I did, and I can think two right now that went through that program, and one went into to the Army to be an Army tech and is doing really well, and the other guy, he was working he just left a job at a Chrysler dealership, and now he went to a different place that I can't speak of. But he's he's doing really well. Like I was like, I'm really proud of him because this is an apprentice that I trained,
right?
And to see where he's gone in his life, it just makes me proud to see that there's young people that are actually still want to go and do better in life and learn more. And I keep hearing people like financial and business advisors that say the best thing you can do is surround yourself with people that are smarter than you.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always thought of the idea of I would love to have an apprentice who, by the time that they're licensed, they're as good as me or smarter and know stuff that I don't know because, I can't know it all, but I can teach them what I know. And I'm very strict as to what I teach them. We do a lot of co-op students from the local high school, and a lot of people, when they get a co-op student out of the automotive program, they use them as, I don't know, a gopher, free labor, right? Well, every co-op student that I have, the very first thing I teach them is how to put a car in a hoist, and then I teach them how to do an oil change, and then I teach them how to take off tires and brakes.
Yep.
And then I teach them how to do brakes. And the teachers have come to me, and one time a teacher came to me and said, like you're really making them work hard. And I said, and like I want them to be here and learn. Like, I don't need somebody to sweep the floor. Yeah, we need to sweep the floor, but they're not going to sweep the floor all day. Said if I can't have them come here and be able to tell them to go get me a 3/8 ratchet with a 13 mil socket deep on it, then I don't want them. Like they need to know these kinds of things, and they need to know what tools are, and they need to know how to do brakes and how to do that kind of stuff. Because when they leave here, I want them to have learned something, not how to sweep the floor, not how to do just top up oil or whatever. I want them to know. And I think that there is always obviously room for improvement in the apprenticeship program, but I think that the biggest thing is that they don't really allow best training in the industry, like work training. When I was at Fanshawe, I went to school with one guy who was a third-year apprentice working at a Toyota dealership and had never done anything but oil changes and tires.
Yeah. And I'm
like, how's this kid going to learn anything?
And I've heard it from more than one source. And that's why they went and rechanged. They made some changes to the apprenticeship program with the Ontario College of Trades and all kind of stuff, because they were having too many that were going through their third year and they were either failing the exam or when they got their exam done. And when they hit the shop floor, they still weren't ready for the shop floor. Mm-hmm. So I'm like you. I think when I've had some of the young hires come on or co-op students in the past, like I get them right in there and okay, this is how a brake job, because if I find that they just don't have the work ethic, like they're staring at their phone instead of doing the job, that's a one red flag. If I find that they get their hands a little bit dirty and they realize that they don't like it, I want them to wash out when they're in a co-op placement or early in their trade and get out of it. I want them to see the reality of what this industry is and then know that this is not for me and I'm going a different direction in life. Instead of having them go through 3 years, get a bunch of toolbox, tool debt, and then be thrown to the flat rate, wolves or whatever, shop culture problems, and realize and go, oh, this is definitely not for me, mm-hmm. And it's like then they start over again doing what? Going to a different skilled trade. You got to start at the bottom again, right? Another apprenticeship, all that kind of stuff. So I'm not hard on mine, but I look at little things just like you said. Can they use the tools efficiently? Like, do they understand the point that, like, if I can't break that loose, I need to increase my leverage? How do I do that? Like basic physical principles. If they can't grasp it, right, I've got to back up a little bit now and work just on those fundamentals, right, before I get them to where, the young people these days have this glorified ideal of like, I'm going to be looking at fuel maps and tuning, race cars. and that's not it. You're going to be dirty and you're going to be doing, tires, all kinds of tires. You're going to be doing struts. You're going to be doing
work. Yeah.
You're going to be doing brakes. You're going to be doing a lot of brakes. Like you're going to get a lot of oil dumped on you. Like, so it sucks when, I guess this is my biggest thing, is that too many times the book gets signed off for the kid and they never really did spend enough time at the master tech's elbow being actually in that mentor, apprentice role. They say, oh, they can competently do it. He did it one time. Do they really understand the fundamentals of what's going on here? Like you said, like if, how do I look at a brake rotor and know if I should change it or, machine it? How do I look at pads and can determine if they're, cars pulling or not by looking at what the brakes are doing, right? Like that's all the stuff that they need to learn, not just put some brakes on one day, sign off on the book. That's my beef with it. There's not enough.
And that all falls into the actual techs that are doing the training, mm-hmm. right? Because when you go to the school, I remember when I was in class, they're like, you didn't learn any of that kind of stuff because it was all just, I guess what I gathered from school is everything was just theory and principle. Like mm-hmm. this is how it should operate. When you get into the real world, and this is how it does operate. That's like, if I have the biggest beef with it, that's my beef with it. The schooling is all just theory, and most of them that, like you say, when they go through the schooling and they're done it, like I had some kids that came through, they did the pre-apprenticeship program at Fanshawe Offers, and it was like a 3-year course, not signed up as an apprentice, just did the program.
Yeah.
And they come out they don't know squat. Like at least not squat as far as what the industry needs them to know. Mm-hmm. Because I look at it, and most of the time, majority of what kids need to know nowadays is how to diagnose your basic misfire, how to, like you say, check to see suspension and brakes, and in reality, what is safety check rate? Like I've been thinking about it. Fanshawe should offer a course on how to safety a car, because most people come out of the trades nowadays, they got their license, or they come out of the school, they got their license, and they don't know the first thing about how to safety a car or how to keep a car maintained to be on the highway, right?
Yeah. And this is what scared me too, is when we went through this safety change, what really worried me was a lot of shops, because you know how it was going to be. If they were going to keep the price low, they're going to go to an even lower skilled technician that does the inspection, right? And maybe he pulls the wheels, and then the master comes over and checks it all, but they're going around taking the tablet because I don't know. I know, but there's nothing stopping somebody from you putting your number into the tablet and logging in and saying you're doing the safety, and then you hand the tablet off and somebody else goes around and inspects the car. There's no way to stop that from happening, right? Yep. It does. I'm sure it does.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want the low-skilled, low-paid people doing the inspections, because here's the other thing that drives me nuts is guys that pull a car in for safety and they didn't even road test the car. Now, and I mean road test, like you drove around the block. Did you drive it at highway speeds? No.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the regulation says you only have to go to 40 kilometers an hour. So, right? Like, what's that all about? Well, they put that in there for people who are too cheap to go get a yellow service plate, so they can take a customer's car on the highway and actually road test it.
That's right.
You can't tell everything on 40 kilometers an hour. I don't care who you are.
And I don't want the customer to come back to me and say, well, when I'm on the 401, that's our big highway here, people, for the Americans, and I hit the brakes at 110, 65 miles an hour for my American friends. It shakes. I'm not happy just telling them, well, I'm sorry, it passes safety because I only drove it up to 40 kilometers, 25 miles an hour. Like, I'm not good with telling people that. Like, to me, if I can hammer the brakes at 120K and they don't shake, they're good. They're working the way. Now, that doesn't mean they're thick enough, but they're not, it's breaking the way it should. It's not darting. It's not shaking the whole. So I've had countless cars in the last week with newer rotors on that when I take them out on the highway and drive them, 120, hit the brakes, they're pulsating like a mother. And then it's like, what am I doing? Well, I'm going back and starting at square one. So the idea that we're putting young people in to get these, I saw a video on TikTok and somebody, it was a young, I assume he's a licensed technician, but he's got the tablet in his hand, but he wouldn't have been 30. So he's going around, tablet in his hand, taking his pictures. Somebody made a comment. Somebody said, somebody just got their license. And I'm thinking, hopefully, yes. But what if he's not? And he's just learning how to, good on him that he's learning. But like, we need, there's so much more to this that has to be done the right way, from teaching. I can remember going on lots of test drives with a master tech years ago, early in my career, and him teaching me things just as he's driving the car. This is what to feel for. This is what to listen for. This is watch how it does this. Sometimes we're looking at scan data. Sometimes we're just trying to duplicate a pop or a creak or a noise, We're not getting that enough in the industry anymore, I don't think, because we just either we don't have time or we're not charging for it, or there's no process laid out now that says, I don't know. But
well, I think that flat rate killed a lot of that, because I never worked flat rate, never got the chance, and I'm kind of glad I didn't. But I understand how flat rate would have killed that, because if you're working flat rate, you're going to get this job. The last thing you need is some greenhorn to be tagging along and slowing you down.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are always, like you said, years ago, your job was like you were hard, couldn't find a job, no problem. But nowadays it's trying to find a technician, right? So if your kids get in the way, you're just like, oh, I don't have time for this. And then you just, sorry, my phone's making noise here. And people don't want to take the time to train these little kids anymore.
Yeah,
that's what I find is a huge problem with that.
And see, the Ontario College of Trades was supposed to, fix all of this kind of stuff. And I know, I don't even know where they are now. I met one young lady she came around one time, did an inspection at our shop, kind of warned them about what they were doing in terms of how they were dispatching some of the work in the shop to who they were dispatching it to. And, it's the same thing. The M2O officer, the same thing. They always reiterate, well, I'm a licensed technician too. Okay. Yep. I get it. You are cool. But, sometimes it's like we see the conversations once in a while and people go, well, these cops that get out of the car and they put on a pair of coveralls and they go look under this lifted truck or something and they start writing up, infractions. Like the MTO guys that I know that I've dealt with are always very senior, to put it politely, right? Like they've always been a bit older. And when I worked at the bus garage, they used to love using our bus garage as a training for the younger people that they were training up, the inspectors, because we had 4-post lifts for buses. So they could come into the shop and they didn't have to go down to the pit. We didn't put them on a creeper. They could lift the bus up and they could go through the whole thing and show the guys, this is what had to be done and this is this and that and the whole. And again, because it was a bus fleet, they're safetied every 6 months, right? For which is a whole other thing in itself. But it made me laugh because their van that they always came in, their service van, sat in the parking lot and ran all the whole 8 hours that they were there, never shut off.
Oh, really?
There. Yeah. Either to keep the AC cold or the heat on. Yeah.
That was good for the e-test laws.
Right. So it's one of them things where you just kind of like, well, I'm a tech too. I know you are, but I'm in the real world of it and you guys are,
Well, sometimes, are they really a tech? I got a friend who is a retired police officer, and when the MTO used to do the blitz here in town, he was the one that was, I guess, their mediator in between the local town police and the MTO when they come through. And he said to me one time, like, I remember him coming to me one time and said, hey, they were in the parking lot next door to us, and he said, could you come look at this? Tell me what is this part that's loose and we're failing? And it was a track bar on a Dodge truck.
Okay.
So I walk over and I show him and said, well, that's a track bar. Oh, okay, thank you very much. And so then they wrote up that it was a track bar. Well, that situation there, he told me later, he said, I was so embarrassed by that I decided that I was going to go and get my 310T just so that when this happened again, I could at least know what I'm talking about.
Right.
And so he did. He went through the schooling. He got his 310T. Not that he ever practiced being a technician, but at least he had some sort of knowledge as to what the heck he was talking about when he was helping with the inspections.
Mm-hmm.
So, some of them do have their license, but have they ever practiced? That's like my instructor at Fancho when I was getting my licensing. He was the electrical instructor. Had gone through, become an electrician or electrical. He was a mechanic. He got his license. He worked for 3 months in the trade. And got a call, said, hey, we got a teaching job. Are you interested? He said, yep. So he was a teacher since 3 months after he got his license.
Wow.
That guy didn't know shit about what the real world was as far as a broken wire or corroded connectors or anything like that. Like, it was all theory with this guy. Mm-hmm. And I remember the one test that we took, everybody failed. And he's like, how the F don't you guys get this stuff? It's just electrical stuff. And I was like, because it doesn't apply to what we're doing in the real world. Yeah. Like, in reality, what do I need to know about a transistor? Like, okay, yeah, you need to know a little bit about a transistor. But how do I need to know the 100% theory of operation of a transistor? The computer is working or it's not working. Throw it away, get another one.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of, and he had no idea of the real world. And that's, I think, a lot of times that happens with the instructors and stuff like that. They have no idea what the real world really does. We're out there every day going through it. And we see this stuff and we learn this stuff and we know what's going on. And here somebody from higher up comes and tells us, well, this is how you got to do it. Why? Why do I have to do it this way? Well, because I said so. Okay, cool.
Yeah. I said so is never really, and that's the thing. I talk to so many shop owners and they struggle sometimes with new hires, and they come in, they say they have bad habits or they have bad processes. We have to remember sometimes the processes that they were using was completely fine and worked awesome where they were. I talk about all the time, like how a dealer technician approaches a diag versus necessarily like a straight time, small shop guy. That flat rate guy at the dealer, he's probably eliminated so much more in an hour than a lot of people. Why? Because half of it, if he's never even seen it before, it's already eliminated in their mind, right? It's just too new. That never happens. It's not necessarily good, but they do it. And then the other half of it is like, they're very good at looking at service bulletins, very good at reading service information, very good at finding, what a known good looks like, known good feels like, known good part might be in the bay right next to you. I joke all the time, like we always had a caravan in the bay right next to you. So if you needed an EGR valve that you weren't sure about, it was right there. Take it off. It was 12 minutes. It was on the crew. You went around the problem. Good. EGR fixed it.
Easiest diagnosis that way.
Yeah. But so when I talk to people and they say, oh, this person has terrible processes, it's a lot of it has to do with how they were taught, right? Who mentored them, if they were mentored at all. That's a whole other thing. Sometimes lays the groundwork for what kind of technician they become. And that's why it's very critical to me that it's like, I want them to understand what I'm trying to tell them. I'm trying to teach you how this works so that you can apply it. I'm not going to teach you the whole engineering level of it because it isn't really that important. It really is not. Going back to the transistor thing, is it NPN or PNP? Like, who cares? Can the wire flow current from what it has to come from to where it's going? Good. Okay. Good. We're there. We're 50% to that point. When I see kids, it's like they can tell me how that transistor works, but they can't prove the wire out to me. I just pull my head because, like, most of the time it's wire. It's not the component. Like, so it's wire. When they struggle with that, it just drives me crazy. And like you said, the misfire thing, that's something that we need to really start to delve into, because these, they get all wrapped up into, what's it going to do to the oxygen sensor when it misfires? And it's like, well, that theory is still under debate. What does it feel like? And that's the thing. I wish we could get more seat time when we're training our young people at the apprenticeship level as to what stuff feels like, smells like, that kind of stuff. Because that tells me way more. I trust it more than I trust sometimes even the data, right? We've all had data that's wrong.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And what you're talking about, what it feels like, the misfire. I don't know if you remember back in the day when you used to drive and you'd have this little hiccup, and it felt just like an ignition misfire. And it was a stupid EGR valve on the old Fords that were really bad for that.
Yeah.
And it was like, and unless you knew what you were doing, you'd be chasing that thing for hours, putting new plugs and wires on it, still doing it. And it was just this little hiccup. And once you know how to feel for it, like now, every Ford that you have out here nowadays, when the ignition coil goes bad, and you can feel what it feels like, and you scan it and it says misfire detected in the first 1,000 revolutions. It's an ignition coil every single time. Like, you don't need to get a scope out and do this and that and the next thing. Just throw a coil on it and off you go.
Yeah.
That's stuff that doesn't happen.
What's the bulk? What do you really like to do at the shop? Like, what kind of jobs do you really enjoy coming in that you get to do when you're not doing safeties, I guess is what I should say.
I really do enjoy electrical diagnosis.
Okay.
When I can take time and really dive into it, I really love it. I don't get deep into computers and like our friend Chuck, stuff that he gets into. Holy crap! No, thank you.
Yeah.
But when an electrical circuit doesn't work, I love diving into it and then finding out why it doesn't. And I love showing how the circuits work to Margarita and to my apprentice too. They're like, here, go and test this. My apprentice had his Honda Accord. The AC wasn't working.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, well, look up the wiring diagram. The first thing you do, look up the wiring diagram for this AC circuit. He already checked the pressures, everything was good. I said, let's look it up. And so he looks it up, and then he's standing at, and we go through it all the time. And I'm like, okay, well, what's the first thing you're going to do? And he's like, well, I guess I'm going to unplug the compressor and see if there's power and ground at that connector. And I said, okay, there you go. So he gets a test light out, and he said, well, there's no power there. And I said, okay. So what if you feed power to the coil of the compressor? So, well, then it runs. Okay, so we know the compressor's good. Let's forget about that. Mm-hmm. We're done there. So he's looking at the diagram. He said, okay, well, there's a fuse in the system. Goes and checks the fuse. Okay, well, the fuse is good. I say, so what's next? So it goes through the relay. So now what part of the relay? And I said, so he's like, but you have those test relays. So he went and got the little tester with the switch in it. He pulls it out, plugs everything back in, switches on, compressor runs. He's like, whoa, it works. I said, it's okay. Now what's the problem? He said, well, it's a dead relay. And I said, possibly a dead relay. He's like, oh, yeah, I guess so. He's like, well, I'm going to try one anyway. So he flips it a relay. It works. He's like, all right, we're done. Let's go.
Yeah.
But just the process that he did, and that's how I've taught him. Like you go through a process. You just start at one side of it, especially when you look at a wiring diagram. People look at a wiring diagram and they're just like, I look at a wiring diagram. I'm like, oh, this is just a road map. Let's just follow the map. Let's start at point A and go to point B and see what's in between.
Mm-hmm.
And if you follow those steps, 90% of the time, you're going to find out what's going on with that.
I find it's all the other lines on the page that have nothing to do with what you're looking at that really mess up a lot of kids, right? A lot of young people, I think it just overwhelms their sensory. And so like, I'm always like, when I'm showing them, sometimes I'll take a piece of paper and put it across the top of it and the bottom of it and say, just focus on these 4 wires coming out of here, right? Well, don't look at the other stuff, or redraw it. Redrawing it is so much better, right? Redraw me the circuit. And then it's, get the colored markers out and do it the whole thing. Cause that was key for me. Like I really like electrical and drivability, but I was not good at it in college. Everybody like, you weren't good at it. I'm like, no, like I didn't figure it out until the night before the final exam, when I actually sat down and threw the book away and went, what's a short, what's an open, that kind of thing. And then it clicked for me, because I took away the whole Ohm's law thing of, series, parallel, and series and all that jazz. It's important stuff. But like, what's an open look like? What does what's a short look like? That kind of stuff. Then I got it. And then it was like, okay, now same thing. I go to the component. I check for my power and ground to the component. If I have it, I need a component. If I don't, I work backwards, and check your obvious stuff first, right? But we overwhelm these kids with the so many wires on the page. We overwhelm them sometimes with the whole engineering level of how to understand this stuff. And it's important, but man, like, I've had licensed techs that can't diagnose, brake light circuits.
Yeah, definitely. I've seen that.
Why? Power windows is another one that trips up even some of the best of us still, like power windows on a Euro car. Like, oh man, just, made it any more stupider, right? Like, no.
Yeah. That anything in Euro car is stupid to begin with.
You don't like them?
Oh no, I try to stay away from them. People come in with a Volvo or a Volkswagen or something like that, and it's just like, little minis. They're the worst. I hate those things. Yeah. I don't know.
They're not well built. Like minis. Like, the last shop
makes a brown wire a ground wire. Like, come on.
Mm-hmm.
It's black. It's always been black. Unless you're working on a trailer, then it's white for some stupid reason. It's just, where's the common sense here?
Well, European is not. I found Nissan still to be the worst. I keep saying that from the like, I would almost now work on a Euro for an electrical problem before I'd work on a Nissan. I find Nissan has got such little service information. We were looking at 23 Murano last week for
you bet. Yep. Mm-hmm.
For no memory functions, right? So no power mirror, no power seat, power seat works, but not the memory function, and no power tilt. Do you think I can find anywhere where they're actually telling me what is coming out of the module when you command it? No, they're not saying it. Just, what is it? Is it power or not? Like,
it's just a block with wires coming out of it, and no description, no nothing. Yeah.
And I'm just like,
I've seen that. Yeah.
And I reached out to a friend that works at a dealer, and I'm like, I got this code and this symptom. And he comes back and he goes, I punched it into their version of TechLine. He says they found one case, and he says they changed both modules, and that fixed the car.
Oh,
great. Like, your case study doesn't tell you any more than that. Nope. Just that they changed the module under the seat, and they changed essentially the BCM, and it fixed the car.
Then you can tell your customer it's going to be $2,000. And we hope that it's going to fix it, because we really don't know.
Yeah. I don't.
Sucks.
And it is, because it's a used car and it's sitting there. So I think it'll end up getting flogged, because it already needs, being it's a 23, Nissan. It needs struts because the mounts are shot.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. And it needs brakes all the way around. It needs tires all the way around. So they might just end up putting it back to the auction because it was plus the electrical portion of it.
Might as well, yeah.
You know, the AC works, which is pretty good for it.
Yeah, for a Nissan, yeah.
What? So if you like doing the drivability and electrical stuff and you hate the European cars, what's the job that you don't like to do other than a European car?
I hate cooling system diagnosing for some stupid reason, for like overheating issues and stuff like that.
Okay.
Let me see. My most hated job is overheating issues. CV axle boots. I hate that. And what was the other one?
How are you for pulling a dash?
You know what? The trick on pulling a dash. Now I'm pretty old and my back is kind of wore out, and I've had a hip replacement.
Oh, okay.
So laying underneath a dash sucks. But the one day I realized, I said, you know what? You're watching videos of how a vehicle is assembled.
Yeah.
And I think if you take a dash out the way that they put it in at the factory, all of a sudden it's like you don't have to take the whole thing apart. It's like you've got 4 bolts across the top, 4 here and a couple here, and you take the center console up, the whole thing comes up.
Yeah.
And since I started using that method, it's like, this is not so worse anymore, right?
Yeah.
But luckily I haven't had to pull a dash in a while, so try to teach the young guys how to do that.
I can say this. I found that a lot of guys are saying with the new refrigerant, the 1234, they're a lot harder on evaps. So that's, I know.
Yeah. So we got a Ford Fusion or something, Focus or something like that needs an evaporated core with the 1234. And that job was supposed to be done last week, but the customer canceled. So I just can't afford that kind of money. It's like, well, we know where the leak is now, so we're not going to fill it again until you fix it. So
that's right. Yeah. Yeah. I hate AC work too. I'm not really a fan of it.
Dude, I love AC work.
It's a money maker. But
I was the second shop in my area to be able to do the 1234.
Okay.
Yeah. When it came around. So,
you see lots of guys complaining about the machine though, right? The Robin Air machine, and it's slow, clunky. And then like, I know we got a machine from Snap-on, one of my old shops I worked at. And like within 3 months, it needed the oxygen sensor in the machine replaced, which the oxygen sensor is only there to sense if it's got a different refrigerant in it other than 1234. But it cycles every time. And after so many cycles, the machine says, hey, replace me. And like, luckily we found a part number, we were able to get it, and we got a spare. But like, I can remember talking in some of the groups, and they were like, when all of a sudden those oxygen sensors went backward, they had machines that were like only 6 months old. Machines down can't use it because it needs an oxygen sensor. Like, it was just, and there was nothing wrong with, 134 refrigerant anyway. There was nothing wrong with it. 1234 is not an advantage.
And they keep saying they're going to phase it out, but I think it was just an excuse to make it more expensive so that it would, because it's gone up in price significantly compared to
for sure,
and it's coming down. But I don't know. They think they're going to phase it out, but they're not going to. And if they do, it's going to take another 10 or 15 years before they finally phase it out.
And then
it's gone.
They're not going to go back to 134, so they'll have to come out with a different refrigerant, right? Which will be, whatever decades of getting everybody on board and making it a protocol and a mandate and all that horse shit, and legislation bullshit.
Governments.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. Like, we don't want to.
We don't put propane back into it.
Works in Mexico, man. I'll tell you, Cuba and Mexico. It's mostly.
That's all they use. Yep.
Yeah. So
it gets cold too. Let me tell you.
So what's the next? You talk about retirement. You were saying at the beginning of this, like, I won't have enough to retire on. If you're 45, or you got 15 more years left in you?
That's kind of what I figure, but I'm working towards building up and getting employees to work for me so that I get to the point where I can pretty much manage it and not be what my dream would be is to have 3 or 4 guys that work and know how to do the job.
Right.
And I'm still on the floor, but I just bounce between them.
Yeah.
You know, I don't deal with customers. I just deal with the work that's going on here. I got my customer service set up. He's doing a great job.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to deal with that. I just make sure that everyone here is doing their job. If you got a problem, I go and help you out, do some diagnosing. That's kind of what I would like to go for. I don't know, the place that we're at, we're leasing the property. I don't know if there's a chance to buy it. And I don't know if I ever would, because I'm at the point right now where I'd rather take any money that I have and invest it instead of buying a property at this point in my career. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because if I invest it, then I might be way further ahead than buying a property and trying to pay it off and then sell it and all that crap. So I don't know. We're not quite sure what it holds, but we're working towards it anyway. We're hoping to expand. We're actually looking to see if we can put another bay onto our building that we have. And on Tuesday, I'm going to go buy an exhaust bender, because that's back to my roots where I started at a muffler shop, and there's quite a need in my area for custom exhaust for hot rods and stuff like that. There's very few people in the area that do that.
Right.
So I'm like, I know how to do it and I enjoy doing it. It's good, easy money. So I might do that. So anyway, I bought a machine and we'll see how that works out.
And if you've seen
that takes off.
And some of the stuff that you buy from Walker now is absolute trash, right? Like the pipes don't last. I mean, so that's the thing. Like we were at a point where we were doing a lot of exhaust repair at one of my old shops, and it was like he actually considered doing that, because like the pipes you buy from Walker, they don't even last 2 years in our climate, and then they're broken, leaking again, right? And it's like
it's all that aluminized garbage. I always say, I've done it for years, and I said aluminized will last. I always told the customer this will last you about a year and a half. And that's been like that since I started in the industry. A year and a half, that's probably what you're going to get out of this muffler. And it's okay. So you got Walker. Walker's got lifetime warranty. But who cares? You're still going to have to replace it in a year and a half. So unless you can buy stainless pipes and mufflers and put that on.
They warranty the muffler, but the pipe that gets damaged when you're servicing the muffler, like what are you doing then? Or it breaks, the muffler breaks off, and and then it bangs the shit out of the hanger bearing up the thing and rips the flange off the back of the cat. And before you know it, where are you? You're doing a whole system, for something that was. I hate it. Like it drives me nuts. For being so many years at the dealer, like we didn't have to do a ton of it. So it was like, and if we were putting the OE stuff back on, so guess what? It lasted another 10 years, right? Like
that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
No, I do a lot of exhaust repairs. Like say a flange, the gasket, or flange rots out or whatever, and now you're stuck. Do you replace both sides of this exhaust? Well, no, I just cut it out, weld a pipe in between, and be done with it.
Yeah.
And one of my earlier videos, I did that for on a Honda Fit for a customer, and man, I got roasted on the comments about that. Like, that's such a sketchy repair. You're such a hack job. And I'm like, okay, first of all, I said, this is not a hack job. This is a very proper repair.
Yeah.
And I said, second of all, this lady is a widow. If I had to replace this exhaust, because the front, it's the catalytic converter assembly right off the manifold up to here. And then from here, it's one piece exhaust back, muffler and everything. I said, all of this exhaust would have probably cost her like $1,800.
Yeah.
I said, and then it wouldn't even be stainless steel piping. It'd last a year and a half. This exhaust repair that I'm doing right here, it's going to last the life of whatever else is here.
Yeah.
And people, I don't know, people just didn't understand it. Like the people in the comment section were stupid. I'm like, come on, how do you not understand this? How are you just going to go and replace all these parts, not knowing that this is a stainless steel? Like I was talking before about the tires, the Pirelli tires. This is the Pirelli tires of exhaust. And you're putting on Salem. Like, it makes no sense. Like, why would you even do this to your customer? Why would you tell your customer, oh yeah, this is good parts, but you're going to have to come back in a year and a half and do it again?
But see, the shops love it because it's a 3-year warranty. You know what I mean? It's the same as why am I putting an ignition coil in that costs $10 less than what I can buy from the dealer, and it's made by Standard instead of being made by Denso, because I get a 3-year warranty on it. Why don't I just call up the dealer and get one that's in stock that they know will work and put it in the car? We'll only get a year warranty. It lasted 10 years. I think it'll be good. I don't think warranty will be a problem.
No.
Now I understand. I've gotten bad coils from Ford right out of the box, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I can't guarantee anymore that the dealer part is always better. But like, if I have to put on, another, Toyotas are really bad. If I have to put on another Standard instead of a Denso, or a Blue Streak instead of a Denso, and then watch it go from misfiring a ton to misfiring occasionally, I'm going to pull my hair out, because I'll go through my same process, and I'll take the old 10-year-old coil out of the other cylinder and I'll put it in that cylinder and stop misfiring. I go, my diag's done. Well, it needs a coil. We just put a coil in it. Yeah, I know you need a better coil.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I was to the point where I wanted to just call it the junkyard and go, send me, go lift the hood on one, find one that's 7 years old with the OE coils, and send me the 4 of them. I'll give you $20. One of them's going to work, right? It just
exactly. Way better than that. Yeah,
pissed me off. Your question about the people online. Why do they roast you like that? Why do they say that? You've seen me lately. The people online are why do people follow professional technicians online when they're not technicians themselves, and they're only following to spread hate and sling mud? I cannot understand it. Chuck and I talked about it, and he's just like, you can't let it bother you. And I'm like, you don't understand, man. It really bothers me. It doesn't make sense to me. Why you follow? If they don't like you and they don't like Chuck, right?
Just move on.
Why are you following? And I know why they do, because they're learning. But then they're saying, Frank, you charge too much. Your shop's ripping people off. Like the one comment you had, the guy said, oh yeah, you were talking about the coil spring. Oh, you're just padding the work order.
Yeah, really. Yeah, exactly. That's all I'm doing. I don't care about their safety at all.
The people that are chirping online all the time are really make it hard for me to stay online some days. Like, it really makes it tough. So
yeah. I always looked at it, my online presence, I've always used it to try and educate why we do what we do. Mm-hmm. I've tried to never do, one thing I never do is I never badmouth my customers online. Like some of the shit that I see, and it's like, I never say who the customer is or nothing like that. And like, I'll never do that. But the other thing I want to do is educate the general public. Like, this is why, and again, in that situation with the coil spring, this is why we give you these options. We see this kind of stuff. We have, like, you don't know it. Like, actually, she did say there was a noise, right? But a lot of times they don't know it. They don't know what the underneath of their car looks like. They don't know, like, the condition of what's there. And unless we as technicians point it out to them, they'll never know. And then people in the comments will be like, well, if I don't know, what's the problem? Like, why is it an issue? Well, because you could have a tie rod severely loose and never notice it, because you're not educated enough to know what this feeling is or what this noise is. And until I say, hey, clunk, 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 look at this. Oh, is that a bad thing? Yeah, it actually is a bad thing. Like, you're going to wear out your tires. It's going to fall apart. You're going to lose your wheel. You're going to hit somebody. So let's fix this. And that's what I always use. That's what I use my channel for. Is just, I want to educate people into why do we do it. Sometimes I have some comedy in there and some barbecue videos or whatever like that. But
I
for the
really,
most part,
I really enjoy it. It's I'll say that you're one of the more level-headed professional, the way you conduct yourself on there, and I wanted to thank you for that. And I wanted to thank you for coming on here tonight. I was looking forward to this because I didn't want to get off on the wrong foot with the whole thing. But I mean, it's like you said, you and I are on the exact same page on it, and that's good to know. Yeah. And people that aren't doing it in Ontario the right way, I wish you'd stop, and I wish you would just get together and start doing it the right way, because you're cutting your nose off in spite of your face. Like, you're not playing the long game anymore. You're just, and you will get caught. And, I don't know how you sleep at night, but, I don't know how a lot of people sleep at night, but we as an industry, our number one responsibility is people's safety. And that's why it's important. And when people are making a mockery out of this new system that's out there, man, I'm not going to be as professional as some people. If I catch you doing it, or I know that a shop around me is starting to, you can bet, I'll put you on blast for sure. So I think it's not right. And it's, I want to conduct myself professionally, but at the same time, like I don't want to see the industry continue to be drugged down because of misinformation and misunderstanding, because a couple of sour, players are ruining it for the people that are trying to do it right. So, Frank, thanks for coming on. Always doing it.
You're welcome.
So, yeah. Anything want to save for closing?
This was a blast. I really appreciate you having me on here. I fan of your channel and really appreciate you giving me this opportunity to be on here. And
we'll have you back.
Side of things.
Yeah,
it sounds good.
It's where I'm sure, and that's the thing. Like, we're always going to see some weird stuff, and I mean, I keep watching your channel to see, because you put up a lot of good stuff, and sometimes I'll have to try and start filming a little more of what I see in the shop too, because it's good content, and it helps a long way for educating the people. So,
and sometimes it's so hard to even film, and I'm so stinking busy I don't have time to film. But every once in a while I find something cool. I'm like, I'm going to put this out there and just make a quick video. My wife keeps saying, "You're on TikTok way too much." And I'm like, listen, it's for good reason.
Yeah. So people, if you want to see more of Frank, he's 3D Auto on TikTok. And
it's 3D Auto _ Elmer, because apparently somebody else is another 3D Auto somewhere.
Okay. And great channel, lots of good information. And, you know where you can find me. So everybody, thank you very much. You all have a great night, and we'll talk to you later. Frank, thanks for being here, buddy.
Thank you very much.